Today on the Transplant Helper, we're going to be discussing something I believe we really need to stop and talk about. It's what I have self-entitled as Post-Transplant Abandonment Syndrome. Now, you probably have never ever heard of that. That's because you won't find it in a medical journal. You won't even find it on the internet generally. You'll find it here on the Transplant Helper, and it's something we really need to talk about, maybe even something that many of us have experienced. So go ahead and stay tuned. Hit the subscribe button and click the bell notification to become part of the Transplant Helper community. Hey folks, welcome to the Transplant Helper again today. My name is Jim Burrell, and today we're going to be discussing one of those topics that I think we really need to pause and talk about, where we really need to be honest, open, and consider ourselves and our feelings and be willing to share them. And that's exactly what I'm going to be doing with you today, is kind of sharing some of my feelings along the lines of one of those most depressive and difficult times after transplant that can occur. And that is what I've self-entitled, again, I've made this up, as post-transplant abandonment. Now, if you're not exactly sure what that is, hopefully you'll never find out. But it's basically that feeling where you go through the whole transplant process, you know, the wait time is there, you go through the surgery, even part of the physical recovery, things have gone great, you're on a high horse, you're just happy to be who you are, and then at once it's like you've been forgotten. It's kind of like a musician who's on stage when the music has begun to fade, the lights have begun to dim, and now they're left standing there alone, and they don't have the support, they don't have the encouragement, they don't have the fans cheering for them like they did even just a few moments ago. And that's certainly one of those emotions, one of those depressive type states that I noticed after my transplant that kind of continues on till today. To an extent, I deal with it differently, however, but kind of continues on today. And it's not only something I've experienced, but I know for sure that some of you have felt the same. As a matter of fact, I got an email just the other day, and huge shout out to Timothy Striff for sending me this, but he sent me out an email the other day which basically described the process. He said he went through the LVAD, through the transplant, you know, he was happy, excited to be there. All of his family and friends, I guess, were around him there. I'm assuming that. But nonetheless, he kind of got to a point where he no longer feels like that, quote, rock star, where he kind of feels like he's been left out. You know, he's no longer that walking miracle that comes in the room that everybody's excited about and wants to hear about. He's kind of just back to being himself. And so can that cause a problem? And will that cause a problem in your life? I don't know, but I think in my life it certainly can. So let's talk about this for just a moment. Now, I can tell you about my journey. I went through a 38-year period pre-transplant where I was in heart failure, where kind of, to an extent, I was always the freak show in the room. I was always the guy that everybody looked to and said, oh, he's got heart problems, or he's got this, or he's got that. Now, on one side, it was kind of depressing to feel that way. On another side, I was always a celebrity. I couldn't go to any doctor, not only go to my own doctors, but if I went to a doctor, would say with my wife even, it wouldn't take just a moment, and they would hear about something about me, or maybe they would already know about me, and the attention would be turned to me in the room, you know, about my heart condition, about my wait for transplant, whatever was going on at that period of my life. And they were interested in me. And to an extent, it was somewhat aggravating, but to another extent, to be honest, it really felt good. It felt good to have that attention. It felt good to have those people, you know, being concerned and asking questions and such. And so you kind of get used to that. Well, fast forward in your minds a number of years, I go through the whole transplant process like many of you have already gone through. I've got family, I've got friends, I've got people around me everywhere willing to help, willing to give me that encouraging word, you know, just willing to be there for me and provide. And then all at once, the lights began to dim. All at once, it's like I said, the music began to fade, and I was no longer the center of attention. Now, is this a matter of selfishness or pride or anything like that? I think it could be defined as that, but in my opinion, it's really not. It's just one of those things we get used to. It's one of those experiences pre-transplant and through the initial process where you really appreciate the care, the concern, and all that people have. And when that disappears, you're not exactly sure how to feel about that. And you can even feel abandoned, even feel down and out, or even depressed over this. And so I thought it was something we really needed to talk about. Now, with that said, let me tell you up front before we go any farther, I've got several videos already, all concerning the emotional process of transplant. I'll try to link it up here in the corners, maybe in the description below. You can go over and check that out. Several of those videos particularly discuss depression and anxiety, that sort of thing. I think the series, maybe the playlist is called You Have Feelings Too something. But anyway, I'll link it up here and down below. You can check it out later. But today is a little bit different. Again, we're talking about what I have self-defined as post-transplant abandonment syndrome. Not found in a medical journal, but found in my mind and maybe even in yours. Now, I think this occurs because there are basically three groups that surround you during the process of transplant, whether it be before the process and the wait itself, during the surgery itself, or maybe the recovery soon after. There are always about three groups around you. The first group is the most important to me. Those are the people who honestly care, okay? So first word is care. The people who care, they are there. That's the way I like to define that. This could be your family, it could be close friends, it could be co-workers, it could really be made up of anybody, but in a nutshell, basically you could describe them as the fact that they care. It doesn't matter if you're going through transplant, any health difficulties, or if you're just hunky-dory and fine, those people are there. Those people care for you, they love you, they're concerned about you, and so they're going to be there for you through thick and thin, through sickness and health, that sort of thing, like those marriage vows. They're just there, and they're always going to be there. I think it wouldn't matter what you've gone through. They are there. And those are the people that we tend to love the most, those that we really appreciate and pray for the most. And we assume also that they're doing the same for us, because it's kind of a reciprocal feeling there, a feeling that makes you all warm and fuzzy inside, just knowing that people care. And I think there are groups among our transplant process, maybe smaller for some than others, what have you, but there are a group of people who exist who just care, okay? And that is the main group, the one that I really at the end of this want to come back and focus on. But then there's yet another group that exists. It's the second group, and it is the group that I say they're just those who are concerned, okay? A little bit different. They're concerned. And what that means is maybe prior to this transplant process of your life, maybe prior to being listed or ill or in failure of whatever kind, these people weren't really around. You know, they were kind of on the edges of your life, out on the outskirts of your life, somebody that you cross paths with on occasion. Again, this could be friends and family members, extended family, whatever. Just kind of the people that, you know, once this comes up, they kind of step in, and they're good people. They're standing there beside you. They're kind of telling you, hey, if you need anything, give me a call. If you need any help, give me a call. And they're really concerned in the moment. They're really there for you, and they really want to see you through this process. They're honest people. They're good people. They're everything that the first group was, except for this only came about in their lives in the moment of the failure, in the moment of the transplant process. And they're really concerned. They don't exactly know how to express it. Now, the key to these people is, just like they came into your life pre-transplant or during the process, after transplant, unfortunately, they may be back out on the fringes, back out starting to fade. They're a part of the dimming light. They're a part of the music that begins to fade out. And so you're standing there on a stage, you're still that rock star. You're the only one in your community maybe who's had a transplant. You're happy about that. You're up on the mountain. You've got your flag that you hold for Donate Life and such. But those people have begun to fade because they were only concerned about you when you were ill. Now, I'm not knocking these people. Please don't misunderstand me. I appreciate everyone who was concerned about me 5 years, 8 months ago, or whatever time before that. But at the end of the day, they're not really there now. So there are those who care. There are those who are concerned. And then the last group here, and this is the group that I'm not really that excited about, they are only those who are curious. They're just curious, okay? And that is not quite as good. As I said a moment ago, that's not really the warm, fuzzy group to be in. These are just the people who are on the outskirts of your life. Again, it could still be friends, could still be family, co-workers, classmates, whatever. And they see that you're about to go through the transplant process. And because they've never known anyone in that condition, they're right there. I mean, they are there. They want to see it. They're that nosy neighbor peeking through the curtain. They're the person who's looking from a distance, and they want to hear about it. They want to know how this works. They want to know the intricacies of transplant, and they're going to finally get to see it through your life. You know, they've seen the television programs, which, by the way, are usually not that factual. They've seen the things that come up and pop up on the news, these lovely stories of transplant, but for once, they finally know a person going through that, and they can learn from you. They're really there. They're watching. They're kind of looking through certain kind of glasses, or maybe they're looking to get the sun back so they can see clearly. They're there, and they're just simply curious. And those people, unfortunately, that group, the curious group, will be larger than those who care. It'll be larger than those who are concerned. It'll make up the majority of people who are around you. Now, will they be there for you to a certain extent? Yeah. They're there at the fundraisers, the 5K runs, the t-shirt sales, the donut sales, and the car washes, and everything it took to get you financially ready for the process. Maybe there's some of that fundraising. They were there for that, but they're really not there for that. They wrote the check. They walked the lap, they ate the donut, but they're really not there for that. Maybe they even wear the shirt, but they're not there for that. And so I said that to say this: out of those three groups, those who care, those who are concerned, and those who are just curious, you certainly are going to have those who care who stick with you. They are going to be there. Those who are concerned, they'll fade a little bit. Those who are curious, they were never really there. And so how do we deal with this? The lights have dimmed. The music is quieting down. How do we deal with this? It's not easy. It's not easy going through transplant, being the center of everything, having all the help, all the assistance, all the, the motivation, the encouragement, the people who are cheering you on. It's not easy going through that part of the process when it's going to vanish. Good people? Yes. People who have good hearts? Absolutely. But sometimes they're just too busy. Now, what can you do? Folks, what has to happen is, and this is absolutely, I think, the only solution to this, is you've got to take a place in one of those categories, hopefully the first two, not the latter, but you've got to take that place for someone else. You're in a transplant center. You're there with other transplant patients, people who are at the same point in the journey you were like 6 months ago or 6 years ago. And you need to get in there and you need to be one of those people who cares. Maybe you've never met them before. Maybe you've never been around them. Maybe you have no idea who they are. And as my mama would say, they don't know you from Adam's house cat. But you can care. You can be concerned about them. You can be there to support, to uphold, and to cheer them on. And then when they get through this process, maybe the surgery gets behind the next person and the next, you're still there. You're still calling, you're still texting, you're still stopping by, you're still giving assistance, and we're building a community through this. That's what the Transplant Helper is about. I say sometimes, or all the time, that I'm here to advocate, educate, and motivate. I am, but I hope that you are here to do the same. Because when it comes to feeling abandoned after transplant, you may deal with that. You may not. I'd love to hear about it. Not just for me, but for the entire Transplant Helper community. Go ahead and comment below this video. Answer the question, have you felt somewhat abandoned after transplant? If so, how did you deal with that? Have you been abandoned? How did you deal with it? And what things are you doing? And this is where I want the participants to stand up and holler. What are you doing to change the life of someone else? What are you doing to keep the next guy from never having to feel this way? Thank you so much, my friends. KOKO, that is keep on keeping on. And certainly all of you, stay stronger, friends.